Hey, it is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. Great to hear from you. Great to see your comments. Thank you so much for your support. I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. You know, this is not a one-way situation. This is a two-way, and it's so nice to sort of have the support come back. So I just want to thank you once again for your comments, your discussion, your courage to see the truth. I mean, and to see it shining clearly, and to see the truth shining strong in its awesome power, and to allow that to come to like a waterfall. I mean, I really understand the work that we're doing here. It is a collaboration. This is, an extolling of certain understanding that we're providing you here. And then you can see how all the pegs, in a pegboard, how they, put things on the map for your emotional body, for your journey, for your gut, for your mind, for your heart. Like just putting it into place like a puzzle. Like a puzzle with maybe 500 pieces. The pieces have to come together. And the beautiful thing really about life is that it does. Once you sort of pick your head up out of the muck, you pick your head up out of the sand, you pick your head up out of the drain, you pick your head up out of the gutter, you pick your head up out of wherever it is you've got your head stuck. You pick your head up and you go, whoa. And, you get a sense of presence about yourself. There's a sort of, all of a sudden, sort of, your emotions will sort of put the real safety brake, on your emotions. And it's like, whoa, you might be thrown around like you're just on a mechanical bull. Like, what just happened? It feels very chaotic, very disorienting. And the main thing anyway, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to those who support the channel, but I want to also, we have to get in and zoom in and focus in on the topic of this great viewer question. And it is a big one. This is a big one. I think a lot of people will relate to, and that is to discuss and understand the female psychopath and then how they work to manipulate through separation and alienation. Separation and alienation. It is a large aspect of how a female psychopath will manipulate. Not just a female psychopath, a male psychopath also, but particularly it's very different because your relationship with a female is going to be different than your relationship with a male. So you have to understand that all your sort of global understanding, what Jung might call your collective unconscious, comes into play with how you're relating to this female. So, some people, have it easy. It's easy to relate to females. Some, they run across a real sticker, a real thorn in the woods, a real pricker that they have just sort of latched onto them energetically. Have you ever been on a walk in the woods and, you're walking along and you're like, you feel this prick on your ankle and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all those prickers, so some people have that sort of feeling effect, just sort of prickly. They cause you pain and disturbance, sort of an irritation and a fear that you can't sort of get it off. I mean, I'm just trying to give you an energetic parallel so you can understand the cause that creates the effect and understand this tactic of manipulation that a psychopath will unequivocally use all the time, and that is separation and alienation of their target. They take on a target. They take on a whatever you want to call it, someone who they have scoped out, someone who they have sized up, someone who they have chuckled to themselves, this is going to be a good one. They've, laughed about it, ha ha ha, look what I found me and then they're going to, say whatever. I found me a man, a punching board, or not a punching board, a whipping post, take me down to the whipping post. What was that, an Allman Brothers song? So you might have this experience with a female where you've sort of, found that you are, in a relationship that all of a sudden you find that you do not have any roots, any anchor, any strength. you've been sort of swept away by an emotional tide, like a huge undertow. There's an energetic sort of entrainment that occurs when you're around a female psychopath. So that's how I want. It's very difficult to describe, but I think with any psychopath, you sort of feel a sort of charismatic entrainment, sort of a locking in of your energy and a manipulation that goes towards what they need. So there's an energetic pull that causes people not only to get off balance, but I think in the beginning of the love bombing, there is some virtue why it's good for you to be separated and then alienated. So they pick you out from the crowd. They see you like through X-ray vision. I just want to explain to people that a female psychopath, they will observe an event, a place, a workplace, a relationship, a bar, a dance club, a church differently, wherever it is. They're looking through different glasses, Coke bottle glasses, whatever you want to call it, a whole different lens, maybe a microscope, I'm not a microscope, a magnifying glass, they see things sort of blown up, I would say. They look at things differently because of the wiring in their brain. This is a physiological difference between these individuals. Dr. Robert Hare, a huge, awesome pioneer in the field. Hallelujah, man, someone stood up for this. And he did a lot of his work, don't quote me on it, but I believe in Wisconsin, which is a glorious, beautiful state in the United States. Absolutely gorgeous place is Wisconsin. Just a beautiful, lush, every sort of natural glacier, carved, lush area, beautiful fresh air, wildflowers. But he, in a lot of farms, and they produce a lot of milk, wonderful cheese, beautiful farming, like a lot of cabbage, corn, anyway, all that stuff. But anyway, he studied in Wisconsin, I believe in Milwaukee, and he studied the incarcerated and, looked at traits of and what he described as the Hare checklist. So, the psychopathy is really, the profile, there is a profile difference. Even though, sure, a lot of, maybe he said, 25% end up incarcerated. If we're talking about a female psychopath, so they're able to use this sort of energetic allure that they know how to appeal to others. So there's this energetic intangible, meaning I would say not able to be touched, but palpable in the feeling sense. So there's a palpable tension, if you will. I mean, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. In other words, and thoughts are things. The book by Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It, I would highly recommend you either get that book printed in the 70s or play the audiobook here on YouTube. Really interesting perspective on things. And, but, she talks about the word is law, and so we're talking about really stumbling upon some really amazing universal truths here, guys. So we're talking about when you stub your toe on the hard rock of a female psychopath and you don't see it coming, and then your foot is oozing out blood and you're weakening, you're getting sick, you don't know if you have some sort of bacterial infection or some sort of mental virus going on, but it feels very much like it cannot be solved. There's a feeling when someone is separated. So it's to understand that, in all his interviews, Dr. Robert Hare would talk about, how, the individuals who were a violation and unlawful, which ended them up in their incarceration, felt no guilt or remorse by getting whatever it is they want. Whatever they had to do that landed them in there. They did, even though they were a violation of law, etc., they do not feel that applies to them. So we're talking about people who look at things differently. What people normally think, they, should fit in and, just sort of a social norm, and how you relate to people, sort of giving and receiving respect. So if you're on shaky ground on your own self-respect, or they see a big crumbling building that not to them is a fixer-upper, but let me just teeter-totter and just see if I can get this actual thing to crumble, so the female psychopath will sort of walk away in victory. It's a very sick cycle, but I really want to discuss especially the understanding of the female psychopath to separate and alienate. So when they look at things, it's looking at things through a lens, through a perspective that most people do not have. So they, process things that they think of doing that most people would not ever even go there, think of, act on. They know it's unlawful, not right, it's too risky. But the female psychopath is an intra-species predator. So they're there to prey on people, con and deceive. So you have to understand that this is not your, wow, what a fun romantic fling. This woman, the times we had, the weekends, the late nights, whatever it is. So all that, really promulgates the thought and mindset in her victim of sort of delusional high, the neurochemical high of addiction that they create as sort of a way to catch their prey. It's done through a mental manipulation that most people, they don't have in their wheelhouse. They don't have that running in their computer. They don't have this running in their heart, their brain. It ain't how they function at all. So we're talking truly about really very, a regular, normal, healthy, functioning individual compared to a psychopath. We're talking about a very, very different internal engine, if you will, a very, very different hard drive. Even though on the outside they might be extremely attractive, accomplished, the top of their field, living life to the fullest, or the extremely attractive and seductive, the woman who's, whatever you might call it, they are bestowed. Well bestowed, or whatever you want to call it. What's the word I'm looking for, people? Well endowed, or whatever it is. The curves, with a saxophone like always playing when she walks by. It's just almost like people get into a delusionary, in sort of transfixed state. Transfixed, which is a very different state than most people would find themselves when they are targeted by the female psychopath. So when they're targeted, they don't realize it, because they oftentimes either it's fitting in, it's snapping into place with either a fantasy, a need, or it's really, all healing, or in other words, the con is so complete that you put your guard down, you allow yourself to be vulnerable. This is how they sort of inject, their prey with a little bit of venom, just sort of their medicine, whatever it is, to make you feel, you're feeling lonely. All of a sudden you have this companion. You're feeling hurt about something, and then here they come like a human first aid kit. They're just, however it is that they love bombed you in the beginning. You had good laughs. Maybe you liked the same food. Maybe they relieved you of a lot of pressure. They were there to cook or to drive, or to, or you were there to satisfy their needs. You were there to coach them, to love them. They were the fixer-upper. These females come in with these sob stories, but usually it's a very allure, and I would just say, seduction, but it's more than that. There's a certain sort of energetic emotional glue where people sort of become really super glued into their influence. And one of that is sort of the transfixed, and it is the word transfix. So this is, when the female psychopath sort of separates you and alienates you. In other words, that they do something that's out of the normal, that you wouldn't expect, that sort of hits you really like a surprise. And then you're like, wow, you're just, all of a sudden you're snapping into place. I'm hooked on this person. You're like a puzzle piece that just with a magnet, two magnets, they just all of a sudden sort of energetically lock in a female psychopathic bond, which sort of overtakes and overwhelms. So, you have to understand that all these feelings that people are experiencing, you are not alone. Despite the loneliness that sort of surrounds you, that they think that they can put you in, it's only there. It's only a concept created by your mind. So you have to realize that, that is implanted by them to sort of get you into just sort of like a big jungle of whatever it is that they're trying to immerse you in or separate you with. So it can be like, oh my gosh, you're so, they're just sort of indulging you in whatever way, whether it's with affection or kisses or the, sweet nothings, and they're calling you boopity boo or whatever it is. They're sort of depersonalizing you, dissociating you from your reality. All of a sudden, you've got like the wind beneath your feet. You're just like soaring. It has this sort of very engulfing effect, I would say, in the beginning, but there's a real zeroing in and honing down into the real fine fibers of the being of the individual that's an electrical impulse. And then affects your behavior. It affects what loop you're reinforcing within yourself. That dopamine, like, oh my God, this person is so powerful, or whatever it is that your heart is processing. But you don't recognize it and put it into the verbal terms. You just get swept up by it. It's just sort of like a wave or an undertow. I mean, this is the beginning. And the transfix, so that the problem then is that they will then, come at you with a sob story. They will come at you with just some, urgency. I mean, just everything. They just fill all the room with their urgency, and then everybody else is like, lay down, and then do you see what I'm saying? It's a very, very different approach that they take, that people don't, if they don't see it coming, they then become like what Pete Walker says in his book, Complex PTSD, from surviving to thriving, is, you sort of get into the fawn mode, what he calls, it's a very, deer in a headlight, sort of shocked and stunned. So it's just, usually I would say they use that in the beginning to create that wall of sort of like ownership, if you will, that is very different from what other people do. So I want you to understand, if you've been through this and you're like, oh my God, I'm a grown adult, like I can't be having these problems at this time in my life. This is just earth-shattering. Well, guess what? That was their intention. Guess what? They are an intra-species predator. I mean, if you saw a lion walking up to your outdoor patio and chomping on your furniture, chewing on the corner of your house, because they smelled some food and that was you, do you see how, that would be terrifying? Do you understand how that would scare you, to have this wild, untamed beast, that is a interspecies predator that has the ability to, with one swip of their claw, you're just sort of knocked out, dazed and confused. It's like a jackhammer, stunned. So I would say it's very much what they how they allure and manipulate. So it's kind of like their anchor. It's kind of like where they energetically fuse you into that space to separate and alienate. In other words, they might say something just on the fly that only you can hear and then walk away. Or they might do something very seductive in a very inappropriate time. We're talking about violation of space. We're talking about using, that good old, feed the man through their stomach or feed the man through whatever it is. They're going to use whatever it is a perfect match and fit for you, that seems like, wow, this is just the, universal end all be all woman of my dreams. Or this person has this really large impact that creates this energetic sort of hovering chronically, and oftentimes it doesn't feel like your own. But you're sort of expected to take it on and then think in this perverted sense, which oftentimes is fear-based. And then what Pete Walker says is, that fawn. It's like a deer in a headlight. And the transfix, I would say, is in the alienation, it means to cause someone to become motionless. So they understand that this is what they're doing. This is, it's a very strange behavioral repertoire for people to have on the daily, to cause someone to become motionless with horror, wonder, or astonishment. So transfix. I remember back in the day, I was at I was listening to some really cool radio, and there was a new musician, Nicholas Barron or something like this, out of the city, and he had this like really cool song. I mean, that he wrote and just played, one man with a guitar, acoustic, so cool. I mean, obviously super talented, and he talks about, you know, being transfixed. So this, I would say, is part of, you can see the cause has created this effect where you have felt sort of separated and alienated in the course of this relationship, and how it sort of siphons off or emotionally creates an emotional asphyxiation. I can't breathe. You feel very uncomfortable, dissociated, lost, but it's to cause someone to become motionless with horror. Okay? This is not a fun state. This is not pleasant. This is, but this then, becomes an ongoing state that one has to then contend with, because usually there's that, love bombing where one has then made themselves vulnerable, laid their guard down, and they feel that they have been got by this person. So to cause someone to become motionless with horror, wonder, or astonishment. So it's that shock and awe, where it's that gasp, and then you kind of are right there in the stun gun, moment. And, you're just sort of like, you don't know what's happened, but all you do is allow, and you just cannot stop. It becomes like a chain reaction. And the alienation is so that they can go ahead and, I would say, groom you for whatever it is that they're attempting to manipulate you into. So if they want a companion, they want a teacher, they want a coach, they want a playmate, they want a hard worker, whatever it is that they want, they're going to sort of pump up the ego and bloat it out within the love bombing. In other words, I am, sort of all encompassing of your needs. So they kind of put a big dome around you, like a silver platter. They just sort of put that on you energetically, like trapped. You are mine. So it feels very much like a trap that you are living in. And that is not good, because that is the root of disempowerment of the victim. Interspecies predator. What does a predator do? What's another predator we can think of? What about those gross, disgusting snakes that bite people, and they might paralyze them or inject them with this venom, and they are lethal? I mean, this is, what is happening. This is very difficult to extricate and get rid of out of your system. This, this needs to be cleansed. This needs to be, cleared out. You need to understand that there's sort of an injection while they're sort of in the trap, injecting you with a specific neurochemical combo, which is like that of fear, awe, and astonishment and inability. All these different despairing emotional states, creates this discord. If kind of like a music, if you hear like a big symphony orchestra and it's like and they're in like whatever it is with all the strings, it is called discord. It's discordant, it's clashing, and you're experiencing an energetic clash of your life force and then someone who's trying to trap you. So, but oftentimes, there is no trap door. You can exit stage left. So people feel engulfed. They feel enmeshed. They feel taken over. They feel, not just a ball and chain, but an everything and chain. And it's oftentimes in a very clandestine manner, meaning when they separate, it becomes then very clandestine, meaning, okay. So anyway, really quick on transfix. So what they're creating, I know we've been going for a while. We'll go for about another 5 minutes. So to cause someone to be transfixed. So this is a deliberate, pre-calculated assumption and overpowering that they do. Interspecies predator. We were talking about the snake. I mean, they are going out, not just, to dance around and eat some grass, like a deer. We are talking about someone who has the emotional fangs. I mean, we're talking about someone who is pierces, and it's to cause people then to become transfixed, not just interested, not just enamored in love, but to become transfixed, like almost made powerless by, and some men might think this is a relief, that, and then, and then they're shocked when it's just like, without even under their nose, they've just found that they've lost years, they've lost money, they've lost loyalty, they've lost connection with their own job or their own values, and they're just like, how did I get here? So they it's a very deliberate and pre-calculated, just like a snake will slither around either little rodent or whatever it is, and just the way a lion will suss out its prey, they're going to go for the one that's wounded, smaller. They have a strategy. I mean, and that's what they do. That's what they're wired to do. But you don't see it because you haven't encountered this. This is a rare, a relatively rare type of person. Do not put this in the good box. You have to understand that this is an interspecies predator. Cause someone to become motionless with horror wonder is also to pierce with a sharp implement or weapon. So to pierce with a sharp implement or weapon. How many people who have been manipulated by a female psychopath who has alienated, separated them from their whatever it is that in their life strength is for their means, in other words, just for their amusement, entertainment, what they do with people. This is just business as normal for them. And so how many of you really feel that the energetic experience emotionally, you can just say, yeah, I get it, is to be pierced with a sharp implement or weapon. How many of you felt a piercing or a sort of violation, prickly energy? Did anybody? I mean, I can ask this again, but you have to understand that this is sort of how they skewer people in. They really, really do. And you have to understand that it's really becoming like, it feels what people might consider under their skin. The word transfix comes from the Latin origin trans, Trans, which is to go across. So follow me energetically here. It causes trans across, which became the Latin transfigere, and then furthermore transfix, which is to pierce through. That's also from the Latin, all the way from the late 16th century. So we're talking about, the 1500s when this word first developed, to transfix, which is the Latin verb from trans across, fix, which means to fasten, So they're fastening something across. This is just what we're talking about. This is so weird how this comes together. It also, the verb is to mesmerize, hypnotize, spellbind, bewitch, captivate, and entrance. I mean, is this not what we're talking about? This is what they do. It's like a snake that will poison its victim and cause it to become paralyzed so that they can consume it. So there is like an energetic action which takes place in this encounter, which creates this separation and then a feeling of being captivated. This is your buddy, but that is just a concept of the mind that they wanted you to live in. It is just, so release that concept of mind. I am not under their spell. I am not under their energy. I am not consumed. I don't have that in my internal cell space. Like in my internal cell space, there is enough of my own healthy activity, divine, universal energy going on, within my body that is healthy and that is mine and that is okay. And I'm going to release wherever it is I'm trying to hold the tension or hold that fear or hold that fawning, that fight or flight mechanism, and let it go. Like, just exhale it, let it go. Let it go back to the source, like a slinky that has been pulled very far and then slinks back. Just allow it to snap back onto them and allow it to be theirs and just give it back to them. Just be like, let go of the slinky. Let go of that sort of buoyant energy that they tend to trap people with. I mean, it's just so fascinating how this comes together. Yes, it can be extremely scary and paramount, take your life out of the game. We get it. I understand not a lot of people understand the effect of this type of female psychopath energy, because they see some people differently. You know, they corner, they paint, they the little innuendos, whatever it is. There's an energetic, you know, and then maybe a sad story, you know, and something that really sets them apart from the pack. I mean, they almost seem intouchable, or just, you know, people might say that this is the answer to my prayers. I've never met anyone this gorgeous, this talented, this sexy, this alluring, whatever all the words, you know, I've never, usually is I've never met, you know, and then followed by that, and then just how they then wake up to an epiphany that they have been taken, that they have been trapped by a deliberate interspecies predator. But guess what? You're up on your feet. You know, guess what? You can breathe easy. Guess what? You've recognized what was happening, and you don't play in that sandbox no more. It is roped off. It's blocked off. It's got a hazard sign. You know, they're trying to drain the sewage from that all that negative energy. I mean, allow the sewer to just drain it away. You know, life will replenish. Allow and allow and allow the positive to come and flow through you like a waterfall. And just stay in that purity, in that confidence of being, and nourish and help yourself, and release the negative energy and all the impact and influence that comes with it, the self-sabotage, the worry, the intrusive thinking, the nightmares, whatever it is. Let that whole lifestyle go. Let that whole situation go. Thank God you found this channel. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace be with you. Have a beautiful day. Peace be with you.